Good morning, children. Stay safely at home. Now, I am starting the next topic of the current electricity chapter, that is specific resistance or resistivity. Now, we have learned that resistance of a conductor, it is directly proportional to the length when cross-sectional area is constant. Again, you know that resistance is inversely proportional to cross-sectional area when length is constant. So, if you combine these two, you can write R is proportional to L by A. So, when you will replace the proportional sign by an equal sign, then you have to introduce here the constant of proportionality. That constant of proportionality we denote it by the Greek letter rho, and rho, how to write? This is the way rho is written. Now this constant of proportionality, it is known as specific resistance or resistivity of the material of the conductor or the substance of the conductor. So you see, when I said resistance, resistance is of the conductor. I have not said that resistance is the resistance of the substance of the conductor or material of the conductor. But here what I said, the specific resistance or resistivity, both the term we use, of the material of the conductor. Alright. Now you see, from this relation, rho is equal to, you can write R into A by L. So what is the SI unit of rho? You see, from this one what you are getting, SI unit of resistance is ohm. Then A is meter square. Then L is meter. So you can write it as ohm meter. Alright. What is the SI unit of specific resistance or resistivity? That is ohm meter. Now, how you can define specific resistance of the material, alright? Now, we can define it from this relation. You see, look at this relation. If you consider L is equal to 1 and A is equal to 1, then you see R is equal to rho. Okay. So, you see, you can write specific resistance is equal to resistance of a wear of that material of unit length and unit cross sectional area. Alright. So you can write down what is the definition of the specific resistance. It is equal to the resistance when the material is having unit length and unit cross sectional area. Alright. So you see, from this one it is clear that the factors on which specific, I am writing rho here in short, but rho is what? Specific resistance. Alright. Factors on which specific resistance depends. First factor is material of the conductor. Alright. Now for different material, specific resistance is different. Remember, specific resistance does not depend on the length, cross-sectional area of the conductor, but resistance depends. Specific resistance does not depend, but resistance depends on length and cross-sectional area, but specific resistance depends on the material of the conductor. Alright. For different material, rho is different. Alright. Second point, it depends on temperature of the conductor. Now how does it depend on the temperature? That I am writing here as there is no space. For metals, rho increases with rising temperature. Alright, if you increase the temperature, what will happen? The specific resistance will increase. For semiconductors, remember that rho decreases with rising temperature. Alright, and for constant and manganese, these are all alloys. Rho remain almost constant with change in temperature. Alright, so what you must learn? What is specific resistance? What is the SI unit of specific resistance? And what are the factors on which specific resistance depends? I hope you can remember the concept of the conductance. Conductance was what? 1 upon resistance, isn't it? Like that, what is conductivity? Conductivity, we denote it by the Greek letter sigma. It is 1 upon resistivity. Alright, conductivity is what? 1 upon resistivity, means 1 by rho. So you see, what will be the SI unit of conductivity? You know, rho is ohm meter, isn't it? Means it will be 1 by ohm meter, which you can write it as ohm to the power minus 1, meter to the power minus 1. Again, you know this one already in case of conductance, we have learned this. 1 upon ohm is also known as Siemens. So that's why you can write it as Siemens per meter. Siemens then per meter. Alright, you must put a hyphen, either a space or a hyphen if the two units are product of two unit when you are writing. So you can write it as Siemens per meter or per ohm per meter. So that is the unit of conductivity. Now next topic is, we choose different materials for the means connecting or conductors we use for different purposes. Alright, when you are considering the connecting wires, then we choose the material as copper and aluminium. Alright, so here point wise I have written. So what is the material chosen for this purpose? This is copper or aluminium. Now the question is, why copper and aluminium? Why not other things? Because copper, you are connecting something, no? So you must allow the current without any reduction in it to pass through it. So the resistance should be very small. So now copper and aluminium, as they are the conductors, resistance is very small. Alright, first point. And second point is, as resistance is small, so what happened? Loss of energy due to in the form of heat. Alright, that we will learn later. That heat produced in a conductor is directly proportional to its resistance. So as resistance is low, so loss of energy due to heating can be prevented if you use copper and aluminium. Then second one, for making standard resistors. Standard resistance, we use it in the practical classes in lab, physics lab. Standard resistance means whose resistance, when you will use it in any experiment, should remain constant throughout the time. That's why, what is the material chosen? Constantan and manganese. Okay, for making standard resistors, what are the material chosen? Constantan and manganese. Already in the resistance topic, I discussed it. Why constantan and manganese? Because their resistance remain almost constant with change in temperature. Alright. And secondly, they are having high specific resistance. Alright. So you want to construct resistor, means which will oppose the current. So it should have high specific resistance. The material should have high specific resistance, so that resistance of that particular conductor constructed, that should also be high. So these are the two reasons that why constantan and manganese are used to make standard resistors. Now the third case is to make a fuse. Which material we use? What is fuse? That in the next chapter I will discuss in details. Fuse is a safety device which is included within a circuit, okay, and which will limit the current in the circuit. Whenever the current, there is a maximum limit of every current in every electrical circuit. When the electric current crosses that limit, then fuse melt and it disconnect the circuit. Alright, so fuse, what is the material used for fuse? It is an alloy of lead and tin. Why it is an alloy of, why we use an alloy of lead and tin to make a fuse? Because the alloy of lead and tin, it has low melting point. So what will happen? The moment the electric current will cross the limit in the electrical circuit, then lots of heat will be produced, alright, and it will melt the fuse very easily because its melting point is low. Alright, and another point is its specific resistance or resistance, you can write both, specific resistance or resistance is very high. Then the next one, what is the material we use for filament of an electric bulb? Filament of an electric bulb is made up of tungsten. Why tungsten? Because tungsten is having high melting point. You know that whenever current is passing through a bulb, then if you you blow the bulb for, switch on the bulb for some time, then you touch the bulb, you will see that bulb become very hot. Alright, so the material to make the filament, it is used such a manner that a lots of heat is produced, but still it will not melt like fuse. Okay, unlike fuse, it will not melt. So here for tungsten, it is having high melting point. So tungsten is chosen to make the filament of electric bulb. Then next one is the coils of the heating elements or the heating elements of electric toaster. Then you can say electric oven. Remember electric oven but not micro oven, because microwave heating is produced in some different manner. It is different from the electric oven. So you should not write microwave oven. It is electric oven. Electric oven, electric toaster, electric geyser, electric heater, where there is a coil, okay, which produces, when current passes through the coil, then a large amount of heat is produced. So what is the material we use for it? We use nichrome. Why nichrome? Because nichrome specific resistance is very high. Not only that, another property of nichrome is that if you increase the temperature, if the temperature of nichrome increases, then the resistance increases many-fold. Alright, resistance increases to a greater extent with the rising temperature. So these are the two causes that why nichrome is used for the coils of heater, toaster, electric oven. So this topic is very important. Almost alternate year you may get question on it. So you must remember the material used and what is the cause for that. That's why pointers I have given. All the 5 cases you must learn and remember for the choice of material. Now next topic is the sources of electric current. Now you know that sources of electric current is the electric cell. Sources of electric current is electric cell, and how we construct an electric cell when two different metals, alright, two different metals are dipped in the same electrolyte. So as for example, I have taken zinc and copper. They are the two different metals. Suppose that is dipped in an electrolyte, and what is the electrolyte? Dilute H2SO4. Alright, then it constructs a cell. Now what happens when you are taking dipping two different metals in the same electrolyte? Then you see the electrolyte, it will be dissociated into hydrogen ion and sulfate ion. Alright, there will be two hydrogen ion because hydrogen valency is 1 and sulfate as valency is 2. So there will be 1 sulfate ion. Is that clear? Now, what will happen to the sulfate ion? Sulfate ion, it will go to the zinc plate. Sulfate ion, what it will do? It will go to the zinc plate and then it will extract 2 electrons from the zinc plate, okay, and So you see, when it is extracting 2 electron, then zinc will become Zn plus plus. So Zn plus and SO4 minus, they will combine together. They will produce zinc sulfate, and 2 electron will be extra in the zinc plate. Where these 2 electron will go? These 2 electron will be in the zinc plate itself. So you see, for each sulfate ion reaching zinc plate will get 2 extra electrons on it. Okay, so you see, zinc will become negatively charged, means zinc will have negative potential. Alright, now what will happen to the hydrogen ion? Hydrogen ion, it will go to the copper plate, alright, and then it will extract 2 electron from the copper. Okay, it will take away 2 electron from the copper. So you see, copper will become positively charged, and these 2 hydrogen ion will accept 2 electron. Then first they will be hydrogen atom, and then hydrogen atom they will combine, then hydrogen molecule will produce. But you see here, what is happening to the copper plate? Copper is gaining the positive potential. Why positive potential? Because it loses electron to the hydrogen ion. So you see what is happening? Copper is having positive potential, and zinc is having negative potential. So you see, a potential difference will be produced among the electrodes of an electric cell. Alright, now this potential difference produced in the cell when no current is drawn from the cell is known as electromotive force. Alright, what is the electromotive force? So what I said, due to this reaction, what is happening? Zinc is gaining negative potential, copper is gaining positive potential. So a potential difference will be generated across the electrodes. So this potential difference across the electrode, when the cell is not giving current in the outer circuit, we say it like this: when cell is in open circuit, just like it, cell is in open circuit, you are not drawing current from the cell, then the potential difference between the electrodes is known as the electromotive force of the cell. Alright, so you don't have to remember all the reactions I have written here, just that I have written for your understanding. So you see, you can define EMF of a cell as when no current is drawn from the cell, then the potential difference between the terminals means here electrodes of the cell is known as electromotive force. Alright, so here, although the name is electromotive force, and the short form of electromotive force is EMF. Okay, we may write small e, small m, small f, or capital E, M and F, EMF of a cell. So although the name is force, but it is not a force. Alright, so here you see, if you consider a cell is connected to an external resistance, then you see, when the current is drawn from the cell, current means what? Positive charge is flowing from the cell around the circuit, isn't it? Now, EMF of the cell is also defined as amount of work done to take a unit positive charge from the positive terminal of the cell round the circuit to the positive terminal again is also known as EMF of a cell. So, you can write down the definition of EMF of a cell in the second way. So, you see, EMF of the cell, one can define this way also: the amount of work done in taking unit positive charge. Unit positive charge means you can write plus 1 coulomb charge also in place of unit positive charge. From the positive terminal of the cell round the circuit to the positive terminal again is known as EMF of the cell. Means you see, if you consider this diagram, you are taking from A, means I can write this way: WA/RPA divided by Q is equal to the EMF of the cell. EMF of the cell, sometimes we write this way also, or you can write simple E also. Okay, so ARBA. So you see, starting from the positive terminal round the circuit, again you are going through the, what is there in between B and A? Electrolyte, through the electrolyte, and then again coming to the positive terminal. So here I have considered this is the work done to take Q amount of charge. Alright. So what will be the work done for unit positive charge? It will be W divided by Q. Alright, because it is not possible that always you will get a unit positive charge. So what to do? The Q charge is available, take Q charge only, and then the work done you divide it by Q. That will give you work done per unit charge, and that is nothing but the EMF of the cell. Now factors on which EMF of a cell depends. EMF of a cell depends on the nature of the electrodes, means what are the electrodes you are using. Means as I said, I have used zinc and copper. Alright, in place of zinc and copper, if you use carbon and zinc, then what will happen? EMF will change. And it also depends on the nature of the electrolyte. Means I have taken dilute H2SO4. So instead of dilute H2SO4, if you take ammonium chloride or any other thing, okay, lead sulfate, then what will happen? The EMF of the cell will change. So EMF of the cell actually depends on the nature of the electrodes and nature of the electrolyte. But remember that EMF of a cell does not depend on these following factors. EMF of the cell does not depend on the shape of the electrode. You may take the electrode in any shape. Okay, it does not means change the EMF of the cell, and it does not depend on distance between the electrodes, and it does not depend on amount of electrolyte taken in the cell. Alright, so you must remember the factors on which the EMF of a cell depends and the factors on which EMF of a cell does not depend. Now the next topic you have to understand is, what is terminal potential difference of the cell? We also call it as terminal voltage of the cell. So terminal potential difference means when current, the cell is supplying current in the circuit. Alright, means current is passing through the circuit, then the potential difference between the two terminals of the cell is called as terminal potential difference. Whereas when no current is drawn from the cell, then the potential difference between the terminals of the cell is known as EMF of the cell. Alright, so this is the difference, you have to understand it. When current is drawn from the cell, then the potential difference between the terminals of the cell is known as terminal PD of the cell. Alright, now the question is how to measure the terminal PD. Terminal PD is measured by the work done in taking unit positive charge from the positive terminal of the cell via the external circuit to the negative terminal of the cell. Means you see EMF, how I have written it is WA then RBA. Means you are starting from A, passing through R, coming to B, then again going to A, divided by the charge taken. That is EMF of the cell. Alright. Now, terminal PD, we write it as work done to take unit positive charge from the positive terminal via the external circuit, around the circuit, to the negative terminal. Alright. So, terminal PD, you can write A, R, B divided by Q. This is the terminal potential difference of the cell. And EMF and terminal potential difference of the cell, both the cases, what is the SI unit? As they are the potential differences, so SI unit will be volt or joule per coulomb. Because you know that potential difference SI unit is volt or joule per coulomb. Now, the third term you have to know is the potential drop or voltage drop across the cell. Very easy to understand it. So here you see, when you are taking unit positive charge round the circuit, then when you are taking it through the external circuit coming to B, then that is called as terminal potential drop. Now you see, you have to complete the path, isn't it? Means after coming to the point B, you have to take the unit positive charge from the negative terminal to the positive terminal through the electrolyte. Alright. So that work done to take a unit positive charge through the electrolyte from the negative terminal of the cell to the positive terminal of the cell within the cell is known as voltage drop across the cell. So voltage drop across the cell we denote it by small v, and you can write voltage drop, you see from the diagram, it is WBA divided by Q. Alright, now you see what is the relation between this EMF, terminal PD and voltage drop. Let us find out. So you see it is very easy to find out. The work done A to R to B to A. Just understand it. You are starting from A, going through R, coming to B, then going to A. Alright. This is the total work done. Now, total work done, you can break it into two parts. A, R, B, then B to A. Means you are taking it from A to R to B. This is one part, and then again you are taking from B to A. So you can divide the entire thing by Q, and you can write down, you should write in two steps. Okay, I have written in one step, so you should write in the next step. Okay, so you can write like this. You are dividing the equation by Q on both the sides. Now you see WARBA by Q. What is this? This is the EMF of the cell. ARB by Q. What is this? Terminal PD of the cell. We are denoting it by big V. Then what is BA by Q? That is nothing but voltage drop across the cell. So this is the relation between EMF, terminal PD and voltage drop across the cell. Now what are the differences between EMF and terminal PD of the cell? So we can write down the definition as the first point of difference. So that I have written that it is measured by the amount of work done to take plus 1 coulomb charge from the positive terminal of a cell round the circuit to the positive terminal again. Whereas terminal PD is measured by the amount of work done to take plus 1 coulomb charge from the positive terminal of the cell round the circuit to the negative terminal. Alright, because you are not taking it to the electrolyte. Remember that terminal PD, it depends on the amount of current drawn from the cell. More you draw the current from the cell, terminal PD becomes less. Okay, and EMF of the cell does not depend on amount of the current drawn from the cell, because EMF depends on what the nature of the electrode and electrolyte. So it does not depend on the amount of current drawn from the cell. And third point that I will discuss in details later on, that when cell is in use, when you are drawing current from the cell, then EMF is greater than terminal PD, but when you are charging the cell, then the terminal PD is greater than EMF of the cell. So these are the differences between EMF of the cell and terminal PD of the cell. Terminal PD sometimes called as terminal voltage also. Thank you girls.